I kind of think that the one commenter basically misunderstood what I was saying, that because of the one family name that I mentioned not exactly being a common name, the least that for lack of a better term, the least that the showrunners could have done was seeing if anybody continues to have the family name and consulted those of us whom in one or another fashion do the family name. Now, as I've said, my paternal, let me see, so there are still relatives of my dad's who do have that name. I should rather say who do have that name, whatever, it's the whole whom. Not getting too much into it, point being. And then great-grandma already had to hide that she was Jewish, and, well, she's no longer on this earth, but okay, she is still Jewish. She's now in the world to come. And it would have been nice if someone just consulted any family member and said, hey, do you care if we use this name for a character? We know that, for lack of better terminology, especially with the way that vampires were actually quite an anti-Semitic trope, we know that this could be a sensitive subject for you. So, that's it. That's all I was saying. Meanwhile, I am working on my next book. I've definitely been doing some research for it. I still, for lack of a better term, I still in real life can't exactly figure out where certain family members fit into the family tree, although based on naming patterns and based on other factors that I've seen in records, I would say that, for lack of better terminology, I would say that I have what one could call a reasonable enough idea of where certain family members fit into the family tree. And I say that because it's not always easy to figure out. It's not always easy to find records. And by the way, that's part of why I either write nonfiction books or I write novels and other books that draw heavily on real life subjects such as my family history, because I want to be able to get to a point where not only can I find out more about my own family history, and I'm not just doing this for myself, I'm doing this for others. I'd love to get to a point where someday I could quietly donate hundreds, thousands, maybe I'm even, I don't know, maybe I'm even asking or hoping for too much, but I'd love to be able to even someday quietly donate millions of dollars to help other people get access to their own family records. And records don't just appear, and unfortunately there are even people in the genealogy and the archival fields whom do not care about the value of records. They just care about whatever financial ends they can meet by handling the records. And anyway, like I said, I've mentioned this before, and if I didn't mention it before in this video, I might as well mention it. And if I did mention it, I might as well mention it again. I'm working on my next book, and some people say, well, you just published your other book, and aren't you going to let others read your other book first? Well, yeah, if other people would buy my book, then they could read it, and I try to keep my books as cheap as possible, or as inexpensive as possible, however you'd like to put it. And then trying to think of what else. I know that some people would say, well, doesn't a good book take a year or whatever to write? Yeah, well, then by the time you finally write and publish a book and people are reading it, some people are saying, when are you going to get to your next book already? So it's like, I'd rather write and publish what I can write and publish and do my best with what I can write and publish than have other people complain, oh, you don't write quickly enough, you don't do this enough, you don't do that enough. Anyway, so I'm working on my next book, and like I said too, and I didn't want to give it away too much in the last video, but I realized that the situation from which I was drawing for my most recent book, I realized that the situation was actually much worse than I initially thought, and it kind of gives my most recent book kind of a plot twist. So, meanwhile, there's Riley. If you can see her, I hope I'm holding the camera correctly. Unlike some people, I'm not rich enough just to buy tripods or have other fancy equipment all of the time. Anyway, there's that. See, I'm trying to think of anything else. Just consider buying my books. I'm not gonna try to aggressively market my books, because I myself hate when anybody tries to market anything too aggressively, and I know how annoying advertising can get, and I know that success ultimately comes from God.